I'm going to make a prediction. Before this episode is over, you'll recognize at least one way you've been getting in your own way. And it probably isn't what you think. I know. I have. I've lost entire afternoons telling myself I was being productive. I was reading another article, listening to one more episode, comparing one more topic option, and somehow the thing I actually needed to do never got done. If that sounds familiar, you are not lazy. You may just have walked into the overthinker's room. Hey, beautiful people. If you are new here, welcome. And if you've been listening for a while, thank you for coming back. I'm glad you are here. Before we jump in, if these conversations make you pause, question, or see things a little differently, I'd love for you to follow the show wherever you're listening. And it means you won't miss future episodes. Thank you for being part of this community. Now let's talk about why overthinking feels so productive, even when it quietly keeps us stuck. A mindset built on grit and fueled by tenacity, where fear and failure become lessons, not limits. You're listening to For Fear, Failure, and Hustle Reimagined. Last episode, I talked about navigating the neutral zone, that floating space between finishing one thing and starting the next. That uncomfortable, messy middle between who you were and who you are becoming. We're moving from the past, which is of the old self, and into a remodeled new you. Because if you sit in that space of remodeling for too long, it transforms into something else entirely. The overthinking room. There is a thing called overthinking. And if we dwell in a space of rigmaroling, going back and forth, up and down, pondering, planning, plotting, without any actions, we become overthinkers. We then create and build a comfortable room called the overthinking room, where we set up a nice, comfy couch and, sneak in there every single time without taking one single step towards that goal because we're processing too much. We're thinking too much about that goal or how to get the goals to take off. So today, I'm not talking about motivation or hype. I'm talking about how to actually walk straight out of that door using 3 simple practical tools. But before I take us to those tools, I will tell you, as always, a quick story. Hey, beautiful people, this is your host, A.B. Francis. Just returned. I won't say just returned. I've been back from this trip for weeks now. Yes, I was unavailable. I was out of town, out of the country for a while. But I've been back for more than exactly 4 weeks, actually. 4 whole weeks. Now, on return, I was feeling very energetic, full of ideas. I had a little time on my hands to come back into the studio and explore 1 or 2 of those ideas to put out a brand new episode for you. But that did not happen because I found myself in the overthinking room and ended up stuck in place for a solid month. I have been back in town for a solid month. A whole month felt like a week at first. But then I realized no, a month is 4 weeks passed by without me actually lifting a finger towards what I'm supposed to be doing with all the ideas, with all the vibrancy and energy that I returned with because I couldn't decide. I couldn't make up my mind. I couldn't hone in. I was thinking too much about which direction to go. I was thinking too much about how the last episode did. I was thinking too much about the right topics to come up with that would align with the one before. Pressuring myself, pacing back and forth, day in, day out, to find what in my mind's eye would work better than the multiple ideas and topics that have crossed my mind during this period. So I allowed 4 weeks to fly by me without lifting a finger. Not even a script, I can confess to that. Not even a script did I put down, but I had all these many ideas, all these many options of topics to work with. I held myself up. So at some point, I had to break the cycle. I just had to break the cycle because you are that important to me. I needed to come up with something brand new for you. I needed to bridge the gap of the periods I was away because you are that important to me. I started with myself because now I realized what I was doing. I realized what was happening to me. It's not like I was lazy. It wasn't laziness. It was high grade overthinking, trying to pick the perfect topic, script, and format before taking a single step. So instead of waiting to solve the whole problem at once, I took it one point, one step at a time, and moved forward straight up without even looking back because I know that if I had waited one more day, one more hour, that would have been KIV'd, kept in view while I'm researching and thinking for something new, something else. So once again, I did not start by solving the whole problem, but by just opening up a tool with the idea that has held on for a minute or two. I opened up a tool called Gemini to test a topic and letting the momentum take over. That topic is what we're speaking about today: overthinking, analysis paralysis. When I figured that that's what was happening to me, because I couldn't, for the love of me, understand why I hadn't come up with anything. It's not like I didn't have other activities waiting on me that needed my attention or other projects I'm working on. I was just overthinking because all the options I had were great options. You know, flying in the plane, I was, jotting down ideas, taking notes from movies I watched, from podcasts I listened to, topics that I was going to address. But it became so hard for me to pick one. So instead, I went with what I thought was the problem. I was overthinking the topics that I wanted to discuss. And I said to myself, it will be worth discussing because the impact of it, in my opinion, ends up negative because you don't get nothing done. And I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone in this department of overthinking stuff. I used to call it critical thinking. You know, when we're having conversations, I had a friend who would tell me, AB, you are thinking this thing too much. This is analysis to paralysis. And I'll laugh it off. You know, I'll be like, no, it's not that. It's just that. I would just find myself making up all these excuses to make her understand that it's not analysis paralysis. But this past 4 weeks actually confirmed to me that I'm an overthinker. But I'm also a critical thinker. However, I needed to separate both. Overthinking feels like productive work, but most of the time it's just high effort procrastination. It's just what it is, high effort procrastination. So then, why do we build this room in our heads in the first place? Why? Why do I build this room in my head? Why do I overthink? What takes me to that place? Let's pull back the curtain on where that friction actually comes from, just like the neutral zone. A concrete definition of analysis paralysis. I needed to call it what it is and place it where it actually belongs and not cover it up with excuses or naming it in different ways just to make it look like we're busy doing something when it's actually analysis paralysis. So here it goes. Analysis paralysis is the state of overthinking a situation to the point that a decision or action is never taken. It occurs when an individual or group gets overwhelmed by too much information or too many options, causing them to freeze. Get that? Causing them to freeze. Now, here goes the key characteristics and causes of analysis paralysis, aka overthinkers or overthinking. Perfectionism is one of the key characteristics and why we enjoy sitting in that overthinking room. Driven by a fear of making the wrong choice or a desire for an elusive, perfect outcome. Underline the word elusive. Quote, perfect, unquote, outcome. The second is information overload. Now, isn't that something, especially in this day of AI and all these apps that will give you everly ready to give you more than you asked for? Researching endlessly to avoid risk, which ultimately leads to confusions rather than clarity, just as it explains it. I truly have nothing to add to that. Paradox of choice is another characteristic and part of the causes. Having too many viable options can make the decision-making process mentally exhausting and paralyzing. And the final one, physical and mental symptoms. It often manifests as stress, anxiety, rumination, fatigue, and missed deadlines. All of these I can totally relate with. And I believe you can relate with these characteristics and causes as well if you are in the family of overthinkers. There's too many of us out there. I've come to find out during my research. I'll be right back. You know, my friends, this show is titled Fork, Fear, Failure, and Hustle, now reimagined. But the truth is, one of the reasons I went with this title, I have explained over and over, is because I am fighting my own battles of the fear of failing. And the craziest thing is, it never leaves you. It never leaves you, especially when you are in the public eye. But it's time to reframe the problem. Overthinking isn't a lack of discipline or bad mindset. It's internal friction. Waiting for perfection makes the starting barrier ridiculously high. It makes it high. When every idea has to be a masterwork or a masterpiece, your brain naturally resists starting because you are already overworking the brain even before it starts anything. So it's only natural that the fear of failing or making a mistake or getting it wrong begins to creep in. Analysis paralysis, otherwise called overthinking, is not laziness. It is a high grade level of procrastination. So the goal of today's tools is to help us shift focus from forcing output to lowering friction, so movement becomes the path of least resistance. In other words, you won't have any excuse to not take action, to not move forward, to not do something about it. And here's the impact of that. Perfectionism isn't a high standard. It's a shield we wear so we don't have to be judged on a raw first attempt. But at this point, though, who cares if you are judged? We are all human beings prone to fucking make mistakes. We are all human beings prone to mess up. Nothing is set on stone. The only thing that is permanent in this life, in my opinion, is when you cease to breathe. Everything else can be reworked, redone, fixed, changed. I mean, am I alone in that thought process? Am I alone in that school of thought? I don't think so. So what the heck if your first and second and even 10th attempt was not what you wanted to be? Once you recognize the shield for what it is, you can put it down. But you need practical levers to move forward. Here are 3 tools to bridge that gap. Most home safety advice for women our age is either condescending or a total waste of time. You don't need a 50-page manual. You need a strategy. I'm finalizing my new guide, The Independent Woman's 1-Hour Home Safety Audit. And I wanted to give you a sneak peek at the No BS toolkit. Forget the expensive smart hubs that never connect. I'm talking about 3 specific tools. First, an automatic stove shut-off that stops fires before they start. Second, magnetic path lights that protect your joints from nighttime trips. And third, a fire blanket because traditional extinguishers are just a heavy, toxic mess. Independence isn't about luck, it's about preparation. I've done the research, so you don't have to waste your Saturday searching Amazon. Comment audit below, and I'll send you the full toolkit list and the link to grab the 1 hour guide when it drops. The first I want to share with you is micro commitment. The concept of the micro commitment, where we learn to lowering the activation energy. Make the initial action so small that resistance vanishes. Lowering the activation energy. Usually, when an idea floats through your mind, or the topics or the creative vision comes through, there's always this energy. The energy is high. The vibration in your system is just, ready to tear you apart. But micro commitments is saying lower the activation energy. Make the initial action so small that resistance vanishes. The resistance to not want to do it, to be scared to try, to be scared to take the first step vanishes when you lower the activation energy. Let's take me, for example. I didn't commit to producing a full 40 minutes episode in one sitting. I did not do that. I just mentally sampled it. And I said, okay, you know what, AB, go with this. And that's how this topic was picked. And I just went straight. I walked in straight, did not even wait. I just walked in straight to the studio, opened my laptop, went on to Germany to explore it. And here we are today. Here we are now. So what's the takeaway? Shrink the entry point until it feels almost silly not to do it. I did not commit to doing the whole thing. At least I committed to the exploration. And that built the momentum for me to move forward. The second tool is reversible versus irreversible decisions, meaning speed over certainty. Treat your creative choices as two-way doors rather than permanent commitments. Remember, I said earlier in the episode, nothing is set on stone. The only thing that is permanent is when you stop breathing. So whatever decisions you've taken, for example, this episode, if I felt halfway into it that it doesn't feel right, I can change it. It doesn't have to be this exact, perspective that I have on it. So being able to use the reversible decision process or concept is also helpful. It takes away the pressure because then okay, if I fuck up, I will reroute. If I don't like it, I just, look for another angle to deal with this topic. It's not permanent. Recognizing that a topic isn't a final, unchangeable thesis, because it can be interpreted in more ways than one. In this creative space of podcasting, it doesn't matter whether it's audio or video. If the topic or the delivery or your theme does not align with what you want, you can always go back and redo it. If the shelf you're trying to build does not look like it's the vision you had for it because maybe you placed one part of the wood or or the metal on the wrong angle, whatever, you could go unscrew it back and replace it. I mean, it's a metaphor for whatever it is you got going on. Nothing is set on stone if you don't set it on a stone. So, reversible decisions, otherwise called the two-way doors, is a great concept to embrace. Hence, the takeaway for me is taking action isn't placing a final bet. It's just exploring one valid angle. You can always adjust or reframe it later. Yes, you can. Who says you cannot? You can always reframe it later. You just need to move your finger. You just need to move your legs one step forward. Here is the third tool, the zero gap execution. Is a concept of striking on impulse before excuses have time to form. Because excuses have a way of creeping up on you. At least for me. At least for me. So striking on impulse before excuses have time to form is another great strategy you can use. My personal struggle has always been, and this is me being honest and straight, as I always do. If there's one thing you want to take away on this podcast, is the fact that I tell it like it is about myself. Whatever I choose to put out or whatever I choose to tell you about my personal experience is 1000% my personal experience, my story. Traditional timers or rigid schedules don't always work for me. I struggle with them. Facts. The longer I leave a gap between deciding and doing it, the more excuses show up to talk me out of it. So I'm a bit of an impulsive person, not just on this, but in certain situations, I think I am impulsive. Not in a bad way, not in a bad way. I have shared on this podcast episodes prior how I seem to be a last minute person in terms of getting things done or meeting up deadlines or targets. Not that is a good thing. You don't have to be like me. But I'm just saying, I tend to be high performative when it's last minute, when it's close to deadline, when my target is almost there. I push myself more. I mean, of course, it puts you in a situation of pressure and stress, but that's, for me, I function in that space well. So whenever, I have the urge or the need to do something and just impulsively it comes on me, I step to it straight up. I do not waste time because the excuses they don't have any problems cropping up. And in most cases, I fall for it because I'm human. I don't know, maybe you are a superwoman or a superman out there. I am not. Sometimes I'm able to conquer them and other times I fall. And this is my truth. So the takeaway for me with this third tool, the zero gap execution, is to recognize that moment. The moment you feel the impulse to execute, act immediately. Don't give the overthinking machinery time to boot up. Do not give it time to boot up. Because before you realize it, it overtakes you and tomorrow doesn't come. So I'll say it again. The moment you feel the impulse to execute, act immediately. Don't give the overthinking machinery time to boot up. You don't need to commit to the whole mountain. Just commit to the next 2 minutes, the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, however comfortable you are with that little box of time frame to get something done towards that goal, towards that target, towards that project. Look for your sweet spot so that it doesn't feel like a mountain you have to climb all the way up to. Speaking of overthinking simple things, let's take a quick breather and head over to my shenanigans corner. You know, I get excited when the shenanigans corner is coming up. Are you ready for it? Let's go. Drum roll, please. It's time for our shenanigans corner. Yay. Welcome to the shenanigans corner. So today's shenanigans corner video I'm about to share with you is definitely relatable if you're an overthinker. It's a clip I found on TikTok that just nailed the whole point of this episode. I'm not going to, bother to try to explain what the content creator is saying. I'm not going to even try to mimic him. I'm not going to say a word. I just want you to hear from the horse's mouth as an overthinker by the time you listen to this. Honestly, I watched this clip for an obscene amount of times, and all I kept doing was shaking my head. And I said to myself, I'm going to share this for my audience to hear and to all those who can relate, who would think ourselves into analysis paralysis. So just take a listen.
I'm tired. I should shower so it'll wake me up. If I'm going to shower, I should exercise first so I don't have to shower twice. If I'm going to exercise, I should eat first. If I'm going to cook, I should have coffee first so I can have energy to cook. If I'm going to make coffee, I should clean the coffee maker. If I'm going to clean the coffee maker, I should clean the kitchen. If I'm going to clean the kitchen, I should clean the apartment. If I'm going to clean the apartment, I should put some music on. If I'm going to put some music on, I should charge my phone. While my phone's charging, I'll just go back to sleep.
There you have it. So who is honest enough to say that sounds like me? Now, of course, I had to go to the comment section. And when I tell you there's so many of us out there who are guilty of overthinking, it is unbelievable. But one comment stood out to me, and I thought, let me just read this out to cap this shenanigans corner that I just shared because it's funny. I laughed a lot when I listened to it. Maybe you would laugh after listening. But let me just share this comment that stood out to me amongst thousands, actually thousands. This person here has millions of followers. When I say millions, millions of followers. So imagine how many people got to seeing this clip and commented on it. But I just chose one because I don't have all day to go through all of them. So this person is Lunia Beads, said, I end up going to bed, but I won't sleep because I'm still there thinking about everything I need to do. But I can't get out of bed because I'm weak now from overthinking all the things I had to do. So I just keep scrolling and keep thinking about everything I need to do till nightfall. I'm happy it's nighttime now. I can finally sleep without guilt. And I'll do everything tomorrow. But the cycle continues because tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow never comes. That's the life of an overthinker. So we just have to decide that we're going to reframe it and take these measures, use these tools to be able to execute. Overthinking is a thing. Maybe it's not a health crisis. Maybe it's not a disease, but it's something that can be an impairment when it comes to productivity and achieving goals. So it's important to not take this episode lightly. I don't. Like I said earlier, I chose this topic because I realized that's what I was going through and it did not feel right because I know how much time had passed just by allowing myself to be overwhelmed because of it. So if that clip proves anything, it's that human beings will construct an entire obstacle course before just doing the obvious thing. Because we're humans. Yes, indeed. We find excuses. I will come up with excuses. Trust me. It's not challenging at all for me to find excuses. They come ready for me to choose which route to take. All jokes aside, when you strip away the noise and the overthinking or overanalyzing, it really comes down to one simple truth. My neighbor reminded me of. My good neighbor and friend, Mr. Bart, once said to me, "There's no better time than the present. We might as well just do it now." And he's right. I remember that statement came up because I went over to him to ask him to help me with something in my mini garden he had helped me start actually. I felt like my plants weren't doing well, so I went to him to, complain so that he can come and take a look at it for me. I went in there not expecting him to want to, or to leave whatever he was doing to come and attend to what I needed. I just wanted to go and let him know that I would appreciate if he could come and take a look at mine. And that's when he said what he said. There's no better time than the present. We might as well do it now. And that's exactly what he did. Very kind of him, but it makes all the sense looking back now and thinking about it. Because allowing a whole 4 weeks to pass me by was a complete waste of time. But I am human. The important thing is I have taken action. So it's very, very essential for us to understand that to make progress toward the future, the present is literally all we have. And as I round up this episode, my beautiful listeners, I want you to take this one action, just this one action. For me, if you don't want to do it for yourself, just do it. Pick the one project or decision you've been holding in by overthinking in the overthinking room. Give yourself the next 5 minutes, the next 2 minutes, 10 minutes, or however minutes work for you to take one tiny micro commitment step on it right now. I am not perfect. This show is not perfect. At this point, I am not even aiming for perfection. Please follow, subscribe, share this episode, share the podcast to your friends. I need you to grow this platform. It's not an easy journey, but we're getting there slowly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take great care and be safe out there. It's A.B. Francis.